it starts with really our purpose, which is transforming energy for a better world. And so that serves as our mantra, as our guide for everything we do. And I think it's important to note that, as I'll go later, the dilemma or the trilemma or the quadrilemma of what we do with energy, where we invest, what we focus on next, really puts that to a test. And ultimately, the big question is what we're doing transforming energy for a much better Philippines, for a much better planet Earth. So next slide, please. So just to give you a recap of what we do, we're in power generation. We have 49 power plants all across this archipelagic nation. We have 8 power distribution companies, including the second and third biggest one. We have a distributed energy business. We have a retail electricity services. So I might dare say we're involved in most, if not, clearly most of what makes up the Philippine power industry, right? So that's allowable. Next slide, please. This is on public record. We have time and time again reiterated our commitment to have 4.6 gigawatts of clean energy by 2030, a significant increase from where we are today. And that brings us to about over 9,000 megawatts or 9 gigawatts by 2030. And certainly, just extrapolating going forward even more. Right? So that is in tune with what the country needs for its development, for her growth. We see the great demand, and we are prepared to work lockstep with other industry players, with the government, with the regulators, with the consumers to make that happen in a way that allows for affordable, reliable, and sustainable power for each and every Filipino. Next slide, please. So our portfolio is committed towards becoming, shall we say, better mixed by having a 50-50 mix between renewable and, shall we say, thermal power. We realize that's not an easy transition. There are, as you can imagine, significant considerations, financial, operational, certainly environmental, community-wise, social, that need to be taken effect. But we are committed to seeing that through. I think you are seeing a rush by a lot of my fellow industry players towards that space. And that is actually good. Right? It's pointing us into the right direction. But it isn't easy. That journey isn't easy by any means. Next slide, please. Yes. So what are we hoping to see, right? Yeah, I think from a wish list standpoint, and I say this as an industry player involved in all of them, and I dare say others in the industry wish for the same things, right? One is a responsible energy transition for the Philippines. It isn't enough to say that we're going to transition, but we need to do it in a way that takes into account all the realities and all the aspirations of the country and of the planet, basically. And it basically means that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, right? What happened in country X at time Y need not apply here. So we need a responsible, orderly transition for the Philippines, a bespoke transition, right? There are historical facts to consider. We've contributed very little to what's happening in the climate in the past. We haven't really modernized in many ways in industrial fashion. So we need one that's just for the Philippines, right? That ties in with our economic, sustainable, social aspirations. A second is to have all options on the table, right? Putting a straight jacket on our efforts, I think, isn't one of the things that gives us the best outcome. Yes, we can learn from others, but that doesn't exclude us. That doesn't include certain options that we need to look at. And I think we need that wide lens approach, that big picture approach, rather than start off with limits on ourselves if we're to move forward. It's going to take a lot, right? It's been described as having a bucket of bullets, really, to solve all the problems in the world in terms of energy and sustainability and climate. And so having all options allows us to really look and pick the best ones for us rather than be hampered from the very start. A third is a well-functioning transmission system. I think this is a challenge globally. It is exacerbated, no doubt, by the nature of the Philippines' geography. But everyone wishes for a well-functioning transmission system. I think that we've got stranded assets. We've got some areas that we need to connect to the grid. So there are a lot of these realities that the regulators, the government and private sector, the users are looking to improve. And so we hope And we pray that becomes a reality, right? Because it's got a multiplier effect for all of us. And lastly, addressing this trilemma. Again, I think that referred to, right? Sustainable, affordable, reliable. Addressing this trilemma and balancing the different needs, priorities at different times, I think is a reality that we will have to address. Next slide, please. So what does that lead to? It's basically a predictable, de-risk, investable, positive energy system that benefits the consumer, right? So it has to meet all those areas. It would be folly to think that, addressing one area, say reliability at the cost of affordability, will be a viable option. Addressing affordability, but not addressing the sustainability needs is not an option either. So it's a greater challenge for all of us, and which is why the industry, and by that I use the big I, which includes government, users, NGOs, industry participants, you, the investors, and others, have to be really, really spot on in terms of choosing which investments to make and what not to make. And knowing that these investments have great 25, 30, 50-year lifetimes, right? That's impact goes beyond what we will probably see in our working careers. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that was it for my planned presentation. Just a couple of notes in terms of innovation, and I'll just throw it out there, right? As an industry participant, I think Chairperson Dimolanta talked about some of the innovations in terms of regulations we're seeing, and that explains the great growth, the tremendous progress being made in all facets. Dawn talked about what we might learn from the Canadian experience and the impact, and just changing the innovation on the West Philippine Sea, from postage stamp analogy. I'll offer about three from our perspective that we're looking at. One is data innovation to improve the running of our plants, right? Certainly higher availability factors, outages that are better managed, both planned and avoidance of unplanned outages. Better performance there contributes greatly to the energy security of the country. And it goes without saying that more energy available, if we can save up 1 or 2% in terms of availability factor, that will mean a lot, especially during the moments when we believe we might be facing some supply crunches. So that's something that the Aboitiz Group is committed to and has invested in over the past years. And we're starting to see the benefits of that using data analytics, big data, etc., to improve the performance of our plants. And we're quite pleased about that. A second example I might raise is battery energy storage systems. We just launched one first of our 12, really. This one in Davao, right, on a floating platform, nonetheless, right. And that really allows us to take energy when there's a surplus, store it, and release it when it's needed. And that, I think, will help address many of the needs that we have, right, or some of the challenges facing renewable energy sources. So we've done that. We've committed to growing it significantly. We're at about 50 megawatts now. Ambitions at least 250, if not more. And so we're delighted about that. That's a product innovation that we're looking at, right, in terms of it. Third, I was going to talk about net metering, but I think Chairman Dimolanta and the example in the COA hit it spot on. It's a great example. We'd love to have that. I think, derivatives is another. But what I want to talk on is really the virtual power plants, right? Really bringing in all these distributed energy resources and putting them together collectively as a whole, and better managing the output, the inputs, so that it contributes to the whole grid. Those are some of the innovations that we are looking at. I think some of you may have seen news about nuclear as well and all that. So we as power players are looking at all of them. We're investing resources. We are constantly weighing these options out and looking at them. So it's an exciting time to be in the industry. I leave you the thought. I think Don talked about George Bernard Shaw. I'll go with one as a frustrated historian. One of my favorites, Isambard Kingdom Brunel. He of the Great Western Railways, the steamships, and the great bridges and tunnels of the UK, right? Will we need one to really drive innovation in the Philippines, right? We often believe in this messianic complex that it takes one person to go and change things, right? Yes, you can. But what's more likely to happen is it's going to be a collective effort between government, private sector, investors, foreign and domestic, the public, right, to really make it happen. And we create our own Brunels, our own innovations, right, that drives security, energy security for this country. It won't be easy. There will be starts and stops. The line between innovation and lunacy might be a thin one, right? If we repeat the same mistakes, we're doomed to not to get there. It hasn't stopped us, but what we have to do a much better job is really learn from these things. Why didn't it work last time? What can we do? What can we refine, right? And those are the things that we're committed to doing. The Aboitis Group is committed to driving energy security for the country in partnership with everyone. And, we're committed to investing, right? You just do the math, right? An extra 4.6, getting to 9.2 gigawatts is going to require a lot of money, a lot of careful money, a lot of smart money. But we are committed to that because that's what the country needs. And so that's our promise to the country.